Okay, in the previous chapter, if you remember, the author was not happy that the frameworks or the process of doing capacity building were changing names from logical framework analysis to something else. And he wasn't, a big fan of changing names, and yet here we are trying to coin new names on a bumpy road from Industria to Sustainia. We'll see in a minute. He also mentions the Anthropocene, and many of you may know that the Geological Society, the committee that is responsible for naming new geological epochs, rejected the claim of Anthropocene as a new geological epoch. It didn't meet the standards of how a new epoch is defined. But anyway, let's start to see what the author implies here. The intentions are good, of course, but we're all kind of tempted by putting our label on things. So geologists divide time according to marked shifts in the state and functioning of the earth. The catastrophic release of carbon dioxide from roughly 2 million years of massive volcanic eruptions marked a shift between the last epoch of the Permian period and the early Triassic epoch, resulting in a mass extinction of more than 81% of the marine and 89% of the terrestrial species. Such mass extinctions have happened. Dinosaurs got wiped out and so on. So the Great Dying was what this is called. The Chicxulub, I don't know how it's pronounced in Mexico. The Chicxulub impact delineated the shift from the dinosaur-dominated late Cretaceous to the burgeoning dominion of mammals and birds of the Paleocene, again through the massive extinction of 75% of marine and terrestrial species by altering Earth's climate. So climate change has been part of the Earth's history throughout, and life has evolved to be adapting to existing climate if they survived, or new species evolve. I think tomatoes evolved by the fusion of apples and strawberries, or maybe strawberries, something like that. So things happen. Now humankind has had such a significant and escalating impact on the earth that scientists have proposed an end to the Holocene, which started at the end of the last glacial maximum around 11,000 years ago. The relatively stable geological epoch necessary for astonishing human development since the Stone Age was called the Holocene, and the start of the Anthropocene is suggested. Paul Crutzen was the first one to propose it. He wasn't thinking about geological robustness of the claim, but the terminology Anthropocene has caught fire. Everybody wants to use it, and everybody is saying here we are in the Anthropocene, destroying the planet and so on. In this new geological epoch, which it is not, human activity exerts a dominant influence on Earth, its environment and its climate. Hence the Anthropocene, the new epoch of human beings. But now we know that this is not a new epoch yet. Anyway, I'm sure they will push it again. But you can also think that maybe Anthropocene will not be about how we are affecting the climate and the environment and the planet negatively, but that will shift soon and become sustainables, and we will have a much positive coexistence, much more positive coexistence with the planet, so that Anthropocene will be a completely different connotation than what Paul Crutzen had in mind. He passed away a few years ago. The start of the Anthropocene has been heavily debated, yet there is a growing scientific consensus that it started in the mid-20th century, so some specific year 1952 or something was suggested. Whilst human beings have indeed had increasing impacts on the environment since at least 12,000 years ago, when the Ice Age ended and hunter-gatherers began to settle down and become agriculturalists. Only after the mid-20th century can we find strong evidence for fundamental shifts in the state and functioning of the Earth beyond the variability of the Holocene. Again, this is a claim from the climate science, but geologists look at sedimentary evidence and some lake in Canada was found as mostly being unperturbed by direct human activity, to look at what deposits have been made in the last since mid 20th century, to claim that this proves that Anthropocene is here and we are out of the Holocene. But again, the committee has for now rejected this claim. Okay, so only after mid-20th century can we identify a globally existing geological layer by human activity, the fallout from enormous number of nuclear bombs detonated from 1945 to 1988. Although the concentration of atmospheric carbon dioxide started to depart from the Holocene levels a century earlier, the deviation had accelerated by the mid-20th century and began to result in observable warming beyond late Holocene variability. Similarly, human activity has resulted in biodiversity loss for millennia. Still, the compounded effects of what we are currently doing and failing to do generate a much faster extinction rate than during the last great mass extinction 66 million years ago. This is a claim from this paper, and obviously some science behind it, but one has to be very skeptical about comparing something 66 million years ago in terms of number of species versus now, just in terms of the sampling issues, right? So all the signs of a new geological epoch are here. So we are here looking at a prop where the human footprint, a shoe print, is put on the planet. Quite a dramatic way to show it. The human footprint is now so significant it has ushered in a new geologic epoch. Now we know that this is not accurate because the paper, the second edition, came out just before the Geological Committee, Global Steering Committee, rejected this claim. Whilst natural scientists have been studying the extent of the impacts of human activity on our planet, social scientists have been studying the transformations of the human societies that have generated the impact, often with specific temporal or thematic foci, but sometimes focusing on the transformations of entire societies. Such more comprehensive perspectives become essential for understanding our past and anticipating future social change when considering the profound transformations of societies over time. Amongst the most notable scholars providing holistic perspectives on past social change are John Hall, Michael Mann, and Ernest Gellner. All these names often also create controversy because of the way the message is presented, and there are a lot of ways to debate these things, but we again have to come back and think about the risk we are facing and what we can do about it, and not dwell too much on the naming and the claims of extinction, sixth extinction, and so on and so forth. Hall 1986 focuses on shifts in economic, political, and ideological power when describing and explaining the disposition and development of different societies. Mann, this is not the Michael Mann, suggests the complex combination of ideological, economic, military, and political sources of power direct societal development. Okay, there's something missing there. So Mann suggests that complex combinations of ideological, economic, military, and political sources of social power direct the social developments. Gellner, on the other hand, provides a more materialistic framework that arguably gives precedence to changes in production, which generates the environmental impacts studied by natural scientists, whilst also including changes in cognition and coercion. We talked about power, domination, authority, legitimacy, and so on. So obviously coercion, population increase, technologies have worked together to create these cognition changes as well. He proposes that human history entails great revolutions, each resulting in distinct types of societies. Here is a prop, used typically in evolution studies, from a shrewdness of apes to a sustainable society. Well, are we going from high technology to something simpler? Well, this is some stock photograph from Shutterstock, but nonetheless you get the point that apes are being debated now as whether they are aggressive, whether they fight for no reason, whether they are more cooperative, and so on. But obviously we keep finding new things that maybe bonobos are much more aggressive than we imagined. We thought they were this nice group of networked social animals that had sex to resolve all their conflicts and so on and so forth, but now it turns out that they can be quite violent as well. So we became from hunter-gatherers to agriculturalists to industrialists to technology people, and maybe we are going into sustainable society. Okay, so remember from chapter 2 how the Neolithic revolution transformed hunter-gatherer society into agrarian society, or agraria in Gellner's vocabulary, and the Industrial Revolution transforms agrarian society into industrial society, or industria, which is being coined by this author, I suspect, and the culprit behind the alarming current state of the earth. Maybe Gellner also defines industria, which I will check and confirm in the next podcast. Okay, so let's read the rest of it. Although industria emerged in Great Britain in the second half of the 18th century and spread across the Western world and to Japan and isolated pockets across the globe from the middle of the 19th century, it did not become a global feature until the mid-20th century, after the Second World War. That was when industrialization took off in large northwestern countries such as Brazil and China and elsewhere, and over time also over much of Asia, including India. It was also a period of intensifying industrial development in the already established industrialized societies. These parallel developments resulted in the Great Acceleration, a central argument for dating the start of the Anthropocene for the 1950s. Visible in various social and economic indicators such as population, urbanization, GDP, energy use, fertilizer use, water use, and transportation, Anthropocene was argued to be a new geologic epoch. In US they say epic, the English may say epoch. I'm just going to say epoch, E-P-O-C-H. This period of acceleration is not only associated with an exponentially increasing pace of technological development and extraordinary global economic growth, it is also a period of unprecedentedly rapid and accelerating social change, especially because of social media and the bending of information, fake information, deep fakes, and so on and so forth, which makes us wonder if we are in a new great revolution. Okay, so the final chapter here before concluding the book is an attempt at the impossible. We know our past is punctuated by great revolutions that can only be discerned with hindsight. We also know that it's impossible to predict what society will look like after each transformation. Yet, this chapter attempts to anticipate social change, or at least suggest what to look for when anticipating social change, which hopefully results in a more sustainable society. So it's personal opinion based on research, of course, of the author and others, but I'm including because this still corresponds to where we may be headed and what it may mean for sustainability science and capacity development and decarbonization, adaptation, mitigation, and so on and so forth. So it's a relatively short chapter, so we'll wrap up in a few podcasts. Next up is Unfolding Sustainia. So we'll come back and see what the author has to say about the unfolding of Sustainia, transitioning from Industria. Is it happening within the Anthropocene? Well, we'll see. So Industria is something I'll confirm where it may have come from, or whether this author coined it. Okay, see you in the next podcast.